You could be the one this whole floor can't stop watching. 3 neighbors already watched your story before you had coffee. Or you could be the one who rides the same elevator every day and still gets called, "Sorry, remind me your name again." One of these 2 people is already getting rich. It's not who you think. Your checking account says $186.20. Rent, $1,465, due before your next check lands. You're 28, standing in this hallway right now, keycard warm in your hand, shift still on your shoes, about to walk into 4C. You have until that door opens to decide which one you are. The door opens. Inside, the lights are already dimmed to that particular gold that photographs well and means nothing in person. Somebody moved the coffee table an hour ago, you can tell, because the candles are angled toward the window instead of anyone's face, the Charlotte skyline glittering behind the glass like it was invited too. 8, maybe 10 people. Music low enough to talk over, loud enough to prove something's happening here. Somebody by the window keeps walking back through the door for a better angle, redoing an entrance that already happened, laughing at a joke that finished 5 minutes ago. Nobody mentions it. Nobody has to. It's just how tonight works. How every night here seems to work lately, like the whole floor agreed on a script nobody handed you a copy of. Your neighbor from 4C is holding a glass they haven't touched all night, laughing at something nobody actually said, angled 3/4 toward whoever's filming. You clock the couch before you clock the person sitting on it. Cognac leather, brand new, the kind that still smells like a showroom floor. You clock the sneakers lined up by the door like evidence in a display case, tags gone, price still somehow visible in your head. You clock the lighting rig clipped to the bookshelf, small and expensive and pointed at exactly nothing until somebody stands in front of it. Nobody asked you to run the math. You do it anyway. That's the part nobody warns you about. How your brain starts pricing a room before it finishes saying hello. The number from the hallway is still sitting behind your ribs. $186.20 doesn't leave just because you changed rooms. It just gets quieter, and it waits while everyone else's numbers get louder, get framed, get lit from the left. Your neighbor is telling the story now, the one about the apartment upgrade, and they tell it the way people tell inconvenience when they want it to sound like main character energy. Delivery delays. A whole week without the good couch. You laugh on cue, half a beat late, the way you've learned to laugh at things that used to actually bother you when they happen to someone else's budget. Underneath that laugh, uninvited, a different number surfaces. $240, sitting in a cart you opened 4 nights ago and never closed. It's still there, waiting. Collecting the kind of interest that doesn't introduce itself until the statement does. 30.14%. The fine print you skimmed and understood anyway and clicked past regardless. You don't even remember exactly what's in the cart anymore. A jacket, maybe? Something you tried on twice in a fitting room mirror that lied to you in the good way mirrors do right before you buy something. What you remember is the weight of it, how a number that small can still sit on your chest like something heavier got left there by mistake. You didn't come here to think about interest rates. You came here because somebody said it was somebody's night, some Tuesday that got upgraded into an occasion because a person with a lighting rig decided it should be one. Nobody's actually celebrating anything you could name. The room isn't asking you to celebrate, it's asking you to notice. That's the whole architecture of it. The candles, the couch, the delivery delay story told in a voice built for an audience that isn't even fully in the room tonight. Every object in here is doing 2 jobs. It's furniture, and it's a small, quiet advertisement running on a loop, 24 hours a day, whether anyone's filming or not. You're standing in the middle of that loop holding a plastic cup, running numbers nobody assigned you, comparing a paycheck that hasn't landed yet to a couch that already has. Here's the part that never makes it into anyone's caption. The price of a thing in a room like this was never the price tag. It's the version of you that walks out the door already feeling behind, already rearranging a Tuesday night budget around a couch you don't even want, just so the gap between you and everyone laughing a little too loud closes by an inch. None of this ends when the party does. That's the part that actually keeps you up. The couch gets paid off eventually, on schedule, if nothing goes wrong. The jacket gets paid off, never. Technically, if you only ever make the minimum, if you keep telling yourself next month is the month you catch up. You feel yourself doing it, wanting the couch less than you want to stop noticing the couch, and that's the exact moment you set your cup down on a coaster nobody will remember was placed there and start moving toward the hallway, past the lighting rig, past the couch, past your neighbor still mid-story, telling yourself you just need air. Air turns out to be a shared balcony at the end of the hall, glass door already propped with somebody's shoe so it won't lock behind them. Cold outside. Colder than the apartment, and for a second that's almost a relief, the kind of relief you don't examine too closely. Through the glass, the party keeps going. You can see it from here without pretending not to look. Your neighbor from 4C has crossed the room, tilting toward the lighting rig again, and there's a half second where they check their reflection in the dark window before turning back into the laugh you already heard once. You don't know if you were supposed to catch that. You catch it anyway. You're not judging them for it. That's the part that surprises you, standing out here with your arms crossed against the cold. You don't have the right to judge. Not when you did your own version of it 3 minutes ago, half a beat late, laughing at a story you didn't find funny either. Maybe nobody in that room is exactly lying. Maybe everyone in there is just performing a version of the same held breath you're holding out here. That's the image that shows up uninvited. Holding your breath underwater, not sure anymore if you're swimming or sinking, because from a distance the two look almost identical. Arms moving, head above the surface, most of the time. Nobody drowning loudly enough for anyone to notice, including you. You don't feel superior out here. You don't feel free either. You feel the specific nowhere of knowing something is off without being able to name what, still checking, without meaning to, whether anyone glanced over when you stepped outside. Nobody did. You notice that too. And you're not sure yet if it stings or if it's the first honest thing that's happened tonight. You've done this before, actually, now that you think about it. Smiled a half second too long before anyone noticed you smiling. Agreed too fast to something you didn't want, just to close the gap before somebody had time to ask why you hesitated. It's such a small thing each time that it never earns a name. It just accumulates, the way water finds the bottom of a glass without anyone remembering pouring it. Behind you, through the glass, somebody laughs at something, and you flinch slightly before realizing it has nothing to do with you. That flinch is the part worth sitting with. Some part of you is still auditioning for a room you just left, still bracing for an audience that isn't watching, hasn't been watching, maybe was never really watching in the first place. If nobody's watching, the obvious question shows up next, quiet and inconvenient. What exactly are you buying it for? You don't have an answer standing on a cold balcony at whatever hour this is. You just have the beginning of one, small and unfinished, and it follows you back inside when you finally reach for the door. Maybe you're carrying an unfinished question home tonight too. Type unfinished below, since naming it is often what makes it lighter. Subscribing just means the next answer won't have to find you completely alone. Whatever's unfinished in you right now is probably already walking you home as well. Your own door is 3 units down, and the walk there is short enough that the question doesn't have time to answer itself. It just rides along, quiet and inconvenient, all the way to the lock. Inside, the apartment is exactly as you left it 2 hours ago. Same lamp. Same dish towel over the same chair. Nobody rearranged anything for a camera in here, because nobody's coming, and for once that fact doesn't sting the way it usually does. You sit on the edge of the bed, still in your coat, phone already in your hand before you've decided to open it, the cart still sitting there from 4 nights ago like it never left, which it hasn't. $240, one item, still waiting on you to be the kind of person who finishes what they start. You delete it instead. One tap. No confirmation screen asks if you're sure, no fanfare, no small animation congratulating you on your discipline. The item just stops existing in your cart, and the number that was sitting on your chest all night doesn't leave either. It just goes quiet, the way a room goes quiet after someone finally turns off a fan you'd stopped noticing was running. You even check the screen twice, as if the interface owes you something more than a plain black cart icon with nothing in it now. It doesn't. Interfaces don't do gratitude. You wait for the feeling that's supposed to come next. Relief, maybe. Pride, at minimum. Some small internal parade for doing the responsible thing on a random Tuesday when nobody was going to know either way. It doesn't come. The room looks exactly like it looked 10 minutes ago, before you made a decision that was supposed to matter. Same lamp, same dish towel, coat still on. The right decision, it turns out, feels almost exactly like the wrong one felt an hour ago at that party, laughing on cue. Quiet, small, unwitnessed. Nobody claps for the version of you that closes a tab instead of a sale. You get up anyway, coat still on, and go make tea. You'll forget about halfway through the $6.15 of takeout you almost ordered, instead sitting unspent in an account that still only holds $186.20 whether you order it or not. That's the part nobody puts in a caption either, not the purchase, the absence of one. There's no discipline montage for the nights you don't buy anything, no highlight reel for the version of tonight where you kept your money and nobody found out, not your neighbor, not the group chat, not even, really, you. If nobody's going to notice this, not even the part of you that wanted noticing an hour ago, the only thing left to check is whether any of it is actually true, not the feeling, the number. You've avoided looking at the real one for longer than you'd admit out loud, and the tea's gone cold before you let yourself open the app that has the actual answer. The app takes its usual 3 seconds too long to load, like it wants you to reconsider before it hands over the truth. Then it's just there, plain as anything, $48,000 a year, which sounded like a real number when you signed the offer and sounds smaller every month since. After taxes and the withholding you never fully understood, it lands as $3,174, direct deposited on the 15th and the last day, like clockwork, like it's already spoken for before it arrives. You scroll down to see where it actually goes. $2,680 a month, give or take, just to keep the lights on and the rent covered and something resembling food in the refrigerator that isn't from a drive-through window. You've never added it up out loud before tonight. You always sort of felt it, the tightness, without turning it into digits. And now digits are exactly what's on the screen, refusing to be felt instead. Below that, in a different color, the number you've been avoiding hardest. $5,800, sitting on a card you opened for one specific emergency 2 years ago and never quite closed the loop on since. It doesn't move much month to month. It just sits there collecting its own quiet percentage, patient in the particular way debt is patient, like it has nowhere else to be and neither do you. Then, almost as an afterthought, the number that's supposed to be the good one. $3,020 in a savings account you opened years ago and mostly forgot existed. The interest so small it barely counts as interest, more like a small courtesy nod from the bank for showing up at all. You think, for no obvious reason, of the co-worker who rides your same bus line, has for 3 years, and has never once shown up in a group photo from any work event. Not one. Not even the holiday party where attendance was basically mandatory. Doesn't decline loudly, just isn't in the frame when the picture happens, every single time, like it's a skill. Once, waiting for the same bus in the rain, they mentioned, almost sideways, that they'd been putting a little away automatically for years. Said it the way people mention flossing, not the way people mention winning something. You didn't ask for details. They didn't offer any. The whole exchange lasted maybe 40 seconds, and you'd mostly forgotten it until right now, standing in your kitchen at midnight with 3 numbers open on a screen that all disagree with each other. You sit with all 3 numbers open at once, which you've specifically avoided doing until tonight, because there's a difference between vaguely knowing you're stretched and watching the actual shape of it laid out in one unbroken column. No filter, no soft lighting, nothing angled toward a window. The refrigerator hums behind you. Somewhere in the building, someone's still playing music low enough that you can only feel the bass line through the wall, not hear it. Your coat is finally off, draped over the same chair, and your feet are cold on a floor you keep meaning to put a rug on. The math in front of you isn't good. $48,000 a year, $2,680 going straight back out, $5,800 already owed, $30,20 sitting in an account that isn't really working for you, it's just resting. None of that changes tonight. You know that. Nothing about opening an app fixes $5,800 of debt or turns $3,000 a year into more than it is. But something in you wants to do one thing anyway, something small enough that it can't fail, and quiet enough that it can't be undone by embarrassment. You open a separate account, the kind with a slightly better rate and a name you'll forget you gave it, and before you can talk yourself out of the size of it, you move $75 into it. $75. Less than the couch payment sitting on someone else's coffee table 3 doors down. almost embarrassing in how small it is. No screenshot. Nobody to tell. Your coworker isn't going to know. Your neighbor definitely isn't going to know. The group chat is never going to hear about $75 moving from one account you own to another account you also own. There's no version of this that photographs well. No caption that makes $75 sound like anything. It feels, oddly, like locking a door you forgot you'd left open for months. The kind of small click that doesn't announce itself but changes something about how the whole night sits with you. Not triumphant. Just closed. Just done. Here's the part you don't say out loud yet, because it still sounds strange even inside your own head. Every night you don't post, don't explain, don't perform the version of tonight where you're the one with a story worth telling. You're keeping something instead of spending it. Not just money. Attention works like a currency too, and every unit of it you don't hand over stays yours, sitting somewhere behind your ribs next to the number from the hallway, quietly compounding in a way nobody's going to clap for. $75 doesn't change your life. You know that clearly enough not to lie to yourself about it. What it does is smaller and stranger. It makes tomorrow night, when you're tempted to skip it, a little harder to skip, because you already did it once without anyone watching, and it turns out that's the only audience whose opinion was ever going to matter for something like this to actually work. Somewhere in the months that follow, without much ceremony, two things change. The annual review lands with a $2,000 bump. Nothing dramatic, just enough to move the number on your offer letter from $48,000 to an even $50. And the extra hours you picked up on the side, the ones you almost quit twice because they felt like too much for too little, have quietly settled into $400 a month, arriving with a kind of boring reliability that used to feel exciting and now just feels like a second small paycheck you almost forget to check for. You notice the temptation before you notice you're noticing it. 2 floors up, a unit opens with the same layout as yours but a real balcony this time, wide enough to actually stand on, angled toward the kind of light that makes everything look better than it is. Somebody in the building group chat already has a lease application in. Somebody else is already talking about the balcony like it's a stage they've been auditioning for their whole life. You scroll through the thread longer than you mean to. Somebody's already measuring curtain lengths for a balcony they haven't signed for yet. Somebody else asks, half joking, half not, whether the natural light up there is actually as good as it looks in the listing photos. And 3 people answer within a minute, enthusiastic in the specific way people get when they're describing something they want you to want too. There's a bundle deal too, the kind that shows up in your feed like it reads your diary. A ring light, a better camera mount, a small setup that would turn your own apartment into something postable, financed at 0% if you sign today, $1,299 split into invisible monthly pieces that feel like nothing until you actually add them up. You do add them up. On purpose this time, sitting with a pen instead of just letting the numbers wash past you. The upstairs unit costs $380 more a month than what you're paying now, $1,845 total, for a better view and a balcony that photographs well. The setup costs $1,299, which breaks down to $108.25 a month if you stretch it out. Interest-free, technically, as long as you never miss a payment and never need the flexibility of not having committed to it. Then you put a different number next to both of them, what either amount would become if it went into your accounts instead, growing at the same quiet pace your $75 has been growing since that first night, multiplied by every month between now and whenever you'd actually want to stop working for a living. It isn't close. It was never going to be close. The upgrade is expensive in a way the price tag doesn't even try to capture, and the accounts are cheap in a way nobody's currently rewarding you for noticing. You renew the lease on the apartment you already have. Same walls, same view of the parking lot instead of the skyline, same second-hand couch nobody's ever filmed. Instead of moving your money toward a balcony, you move it toward your retirement account, bumping the contribution up to 14%, just under the number where your employer's 4% match maxes out, so every dollar you send in still pulls a little more in behind it without you doing anything extra. Then you set 2 more transfers running automatically. $200 into the account with your name on it and no story attached, and another $150 into the one you've started thinking of, privately, as the account for whenever something goes wrong. The real cost of the upgrade was never the $380 or the $108 a month. It was always going to be the explaining. The small debt of narrative you'd owe every time you wanted to undo it. Every time downgrading back to a place like this one would require a story instead of just a lease ending quietly on schedule. Staying costs you nothing you have to justify to anyone. That, more than the numbers, is what actually decides it. Nobody in the building notices any of this happening. There's no announcement, no lease you didn't sign that anyone was tracking, no missing ring light anyone comments on. The group chat keeps talking about the balcony unit, about the ring light bundle, about whose turn it is to look impressive next. You read all of it, mute the notifications a little more than usual, and go back to whatever you were doing, which tonight is nothing, which tonight is enough. There's no dramatic moment where discipline announces itself. It's just a quiet click of a decision being made without an audience, the kind that doesn't feel like anything the night it happens, and only starts to feel like something months later, when you notice the shape of your accounts has changed and you can't point to a single dramatic day that caused it. For a while, this feels like the whole story. You've found the setting, the raise absorbed instead of spent, the temptation calculated instead of felt. The same four walls holding steady while everyone 2 floors up talks about their view. It would be easy, at this point, to assume the hardest part is over, that the rest of this is just repetition, the same $75 and $200 and $150 compounding quietly for years while nothing else happens. That assumption doesn't last. It doesn't last because your building sends out a notice you don't get to negotiate with. New ownership, a renovation timeline, a lease that isn't being renewed for anyone on your floor, effective in 6 weeks. You're 30 now, and reading it twice doesn't change a word of it. 6 weeks means a deposit on a new place before you've gotten your old one back, first month due on arrival, a moving truck you have to pay for out of pocket because none of your friends have trucks anymore, they have leases just like this one. It adds up fast, in a way that doesn't wait for your next paycheck to be polite about it. $1,850, $1,465 for the new deposit and $385 for the truck, stacked on top of each other, due before rent even resets. Same week, almost cruelly, the side income stops. No warning, no final invoice, just an email thanking you for your work and wishing you well, and $400 a month you'd started quietly counting on evaporates like it was never really yours to count on in the first place. You sit with 2 tabs open. One shows the moving costs. The other shows $20,600, sitting there, untouched, growing, exactly where you left it. Your finger hovers over the transfer out button longer than you'd admit to anyone. For the first time since that first $75, you think the people 2 floors up might have had it right all along. At least what they own can be touched, sold, turned into cash by Friday if they needed it to be. At least being seen occasionally pays for something. You close that tab instead of the other one. There's a second account, smaller, duller, the one you started for exactly this kind of week and mostly forgot was still running in the background. $2,300, unglamorous, uninvested, just sitting there being boring on purpose. It covers the deposit, it covers the truck. It leaves $450 behind. Not enough to feel good about, just enough to not touch anything else. The long-term account doesn't move. $20,600 stays exactly where it was, still growing, still nobody's business. Nobody in the building ever finds out how close you came to needing it. Nobody at work ever hears the side income disappeared the same week the notice went out. There's no relief lap, no moment where music swells. Just a quieter apartment, a moving date on the calendar, and a number that didn't have to change to save you. If you added it all up right now, the deposit paid, the truck paid, the long-term account untouched, you'd land somewhere around $23,540. Total. Everything you technically have in the world. It's just the number that was there when it mattered, doing exactly what it was quietly built to do. The building group chat lights up again a few days later. A fresh round of glossy nights from 2 floors up, captions doing a lot of work. You watch the first few seconds out of habit and close it without finishing. No second look, no comparison running in the background this time. It just doesn't pull the way it used to. At work, the quiet coworker asks how your week went. 4 words, nothing more. You give them 6 words back, nothing dramatic, just the truth in miniature. They nod once, exactly once, and go back to their coffee. Nobody explains anything further. Nobody needs to. A different neighbor, the one everyone in the building quietly assumes is barely getting by, mentions almost nothing about a retirement account they've been feeding for 9 years, longer than most people here have lived in the building at all. They only bring it up because you ask directly, and even then they undersell it, say it like it's boring, because the second people know, they get opinions. You start doing small things, nobody traces back to you. A parking pass renewed anonymously for the elderly man in 2B. $18 here, $18 there, dropped without a name attached. It isn't charity exactly. It's evidence, filed quietly, that this was never a one-person theory. By the time you actually check, 35 now, the numbers barely feel real. $103,700 in the long-term accounts, $9,200 sitting in reserve, untouched since the move. $112 a month arriving now from investments alone, without you lifting a finger for it. Net worth? $115,050. On paper, quietly, for someone still paying $1,465 a month for a one-bedroom nobody would call impressive. You could afford somewhere else entirely. You don't move. The old couch stays. The neighbor from 4C passes you in the hallway one evening, slower than usual, quiet, longer than the moment needs, and says only, "So you're doing all right then," before walking on. Some ordinary evening after that, nothing marking the date, you notice you stopped performing your life a while back without ever deciding to, the way you'd stop humming a song without noticing the exact second it ended. The real milestones, looking back, were never the ones anyone saw. They were doors closing quietly on nights nobody was watching, $75 at a time. Tonight, somewhere else in the city, in a hallway that could be any hallway, someone else is standing outside a door, keycard warm, checking account open on their phone. $186.20. Rent due before the next check lands. Two versions of themselves waiting on the other side of a door that hasn't opened yet. They have until it opens to decide which one they are. Nobody's going to notice either way. That was always the point.